Oof! Hi! Yes! We're back. I never left. Hi, it's Alison, and yes, we're back in the living room. Oh, yesterday we had Miss Beetle. Okay, that was that was massively awesome. Oh, cracker. Charlotte Stewart, Real Miss Beetle, read the school chapter where a teacher shows up, and she teaches Laura to read. It's fantastic. So, today is, it's Sunday. It's Sunday, and it's May 3rd. It's May 3rd, and I'm all in yellow. I have yellow bonnet. Because there's new bonnets. Y'all ordered them all. I don't know. Is there one left, too? There's more coming. But I did put up 25, and you did all order them immediately. I got some envelopes over there. I'm like, almost ready to go. I'm actually running out of envelopes. I have a shipment of envelopes coming. I have ordered more envelopes. I have ordered more tags. I have ordered more bonnets. I'm going as fast as I can. I'm running out of stuff. Today is National Lumpy Rug Day. As I said, I don't know where they get these things, but there you go. Garden Meditation Day. Oh, I'll do that. I'll do some of that. Yeah. National Chocolate Custard Day. Sounds like I may have to see. I think there's some chocolate pudding in the cupboard I can make. Textiles. Oh, do we have any people watching who are in Montana? Because today is National Montana Day. I did not know that. Hi, Montana. I like Montana. I've been. Yeah, I should have made lemonade. Raspberry popovers. I've never made a raspberry popover. It's a National Raspberry Popover Day. I didn't even know. Blueberry popovers I know from. Who knew there were raspberry popovers? Well, that's pretty good. I'm not getting into two different colored shoes day. Ooh, National Paranormal Day. Ooh, the show shall be haunted. Will be haunted. It's haunted. Yes, the ghost of Laura Ingalls will show up. So today, excitement. I'm so excited. Why am I so excited? Because today is the Nelly Olsen chapter. Yes, and yes. I am reading the chapter. I get myself comfortable here. The chapter called Nelly Olsen. She showed up at school, and as Charlotte read yesterday, Nelly Olsen was very pretty. Yes, she was. And she wore shoes. Yes, and she was a violent psychopath. Yeah! So, now we are going to get into Evil Nelly Olsen. Chapter 21. Can you imagine? Okay, so I hadn't read the books before I got the show. I got the show, and then I run out and buy the books, and I read it. Oh, this is the one that the show's based on, Nelly Olsen. And I open this thing up, and like the first thing I see is that. And then I get to the next chapter, which we're totally reading, the party, and I see this. I'm like, yes! So, right away, I got this book and was like, so, very excited. Jack was waiting to meet them at the ford that night, and at supper they told Pa and Ma all about school. When they said that they were using teacher's slate, Pa shook his head. They must not be beholden for the loan of a slate. Next morning, he took his money out of the fiddle box and counted it. He gave Mary a round silver piece to buy a slate. Ooh, that's a lot of money. There's plenty of fish in the creek, he said. We'll hold out till the wheat harvest. There'll be potatoes pretty soon, too, said Ma. She tied the money in a handkerchief and pinned it inside Mary's pocket. That was the early wallet, basically. Mary clutched that pocket all the way along the prairie road. The wind was blowing. Butterflies and birds were flying all over the waving grasses and wildflowers. The rabbits loped before the wind, and the great clear sky curved over it all. Laura swung the dinner pail and hippity-hopped, because she is often like a rabbit, so that makes sense. Did you watch it? Charlotte became a bunny right on camera. It's amazing. In town, they crossed dusty Main Street and climbed the steps up to Mr. Olsen's store. Pa had said to buy the slate there. Now, when we shot the show, we had a main road through town. I don't know that we called it Main Street. I don't know if they had a name. I think it was just the street. because it's not like we had a bunch of others. But here it is actually Main Street, isn't it? So Olsen's was on Main Street. It had an address. Inside the store, there was a long board counter. The wall behind it was covered with shelves full of tin pans and pots and lamps and lanterns and bolts of colored cloth. By the other wall stood plows and kegs of nails and rolls of wire, and on that wall, huge saws and hammers and hatchets and knives. Wait, I need candy. That's what I need. I need candy. Do I have candy? Because we're totally getting the Olsen's mercantile thing of candy. Hey, Bob. A large, round, yellow cheese was on the counter, and on the floor in front of it, I have a jar of candy over there, a glass one, I think. What? Is there candy still left in that big glass jar right there? There is. Thank you. Okay. Now we're ready. Yes. Okay. And all the cheese, and was in the counter, and on the floor in front it was a barrel of molasses and a whole keg of pickles and a big wooden box full of crackers. I have crackers. These are much nicer than the crackers that would have been there. And 2 tall wooden pails of candy. It was Christmas candy. 2 big pails full of it. Did I say I was going to do this? Close your eyes. I'm telling you all. Close your eyes. Okay, wait. You can open them now. Wait, where's my brush? Now, she's already seen Nellie at school. Now she's on my turf. She's actually in the mercantile with me and Willie and my barrels of candy. That's just wrong. That's terrifying. Okay, now we can read this. Nellie's nose wrinkled at Laura and Mary, and Willie yawed at them. Yeah, long-legged snipes. That's wrinkled. Shut up, Willie, Mr. Olsen said. But Willie did not shut up. He went on saying, Snipes, snipes. Nellie flounced by Mary and Laura and dug her hands into a pail of candy. Willie dug into the other pail. They grabbed, oh, there's jelly beans, awesome. They grabbed all the candy they could hold and stood cramming it into their mouths. Jelly beans. Oh, I got a licorice one. Oh, how good. This is awesome. I have all the candy. I have candy. They stood in front of Mary and Laura, looking at them, and did not offer them even one piece. Nellie, you and Willie go right back on out of here, Mr. Olsen said. They went on, putting candy into their mouths and staring at Mary and Laura. Mr. Olsen took no more notice of them. Mary gave him the money, and he gave her the slate. He said, You'll want a slate pencil, too. Here it is, 1 penny. Nellie said, They haven't got a penny. Well, take it along and tell your pa to give you the penny the next time he comes to town, said Mr. Olsen. No, sir, thank you, Mary said. She turned around, and so did Laura, and they walked out of the store. Now, on the show, I actually said, I don't think the country girls have a penny. What do you think, Willie? Which is worse. At the door, Laura looked back, and Nellie made a face at her. Nellie's tongue was streaked red and green from the candy. It is! Look! Oh, yes, it's... Wait, I need a green one. Do we have a green one? Because we really want the green, don't we? That is so good. It's old. I've been, like, using this. I gotta, like, totally reset it. Do you know what else I have? I have confetti. I have confetti in my wig. Hell of a party. All right, wait. There's some good streaking. So, complete with red and green candy streaks. That was awesome. Nellie's tongue was streaked red and green from the candy. Ugh. My goodness, Mary said, I couldn't be as mean as that Nellie Olsen. Laura thought, I could be meaner to her than she is to us if Ma and Pa would let me. They looked at their slate's smooth, soft gray surface and its clean, flat wooden frame cunningly fitted together at the corners. It was a handsome slate, but they must have a slate pencil. Pa had already spent so much for the slate that they hated to tell him they must have another pencil. They walked along soberly till suddenly Laura remembered their Christmas pennies. They still had those pennies that they'd found in their stockings on Christmas morning in Indian Territory. Okay, they saved those pennies from how many Christmases ago? But then again, where could they have gone to spend them? It was like nothing. So I guess now is the first time they're actually in a place that they could spend such a thing. So yeah, so now it's like, oh, that's a little better. Yeah, I gotta sneeze that puppy out. Mary had a penny and Laura had a penny, but they needed only one slate pencil. Well, really, they needed 2 slates and 2 pencils, seriously, because there's 2 of them, but they're sharing, so I guess. So they decided that Mary would spend her penny for the pencil, and after that, she would own half of Laura's penny. They're very fairly. Win in halvesies. That's very nice of them, I think. Next morning, they bought the pencil, but they did not buy it from Mr. Olsen. They bought it at Mr. Beadle's store and post office where Teacher lived, and that morning they walked on to school with Teacher. If Mr. Olsen knew that he was, in fact, losing customers because of Nellie and Willie. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And now, of course, there's like nowhere to buy pencils other than that. But in the books, there was still a little tiny shop, like a little, stationery next to the post office that you could get pencils at. And so they had a monopoly. The Olsens did on the show. But Nellie and Willie are so awful. They technically just lost business because they went to another store rather than shop there. All through the long, hot weeks, they went to school, and every day they liked it more. They liked reading, writing, and arithmetic. They liked spelling down on Friday afternoons. And Laura loved recess, when the little girls rushed out into the sun and wind, picking up wildflowers among the prairie grasses and playing games. The boys played boys' games on one side of the schoolhouse. The little girls played on the other side, and Mary sat with the other big girls, ladylike, on the steps. The little girls always played Ring Around the Rosie, because Nellie Olsen said to. Yeah. They got tired of it. But they always played it until one day before Nellie could say anything. Laura said, "Let's play Uncle John." Let's, the girls said, taking hold of hands. But Nellie grabbed both hands full of Laura's long hair and jerked her flat on the ground. No, Nellie shouted. I want to play Ring Around the Rosie. Laura jumped up and her hand flashed out to slap Nellie. She stopped it just in time. Pa said she must never strike anybody. Well, that didn't last. Here in the show, she hits me. In the book, she does not. But here I pull her hair and she does not hit me in the face. Where on the show we just beat each other senseless, and it was awesome. Come on, Laura, Christy said, taking her hand. Laura's face felt bursting. She could hardly see, but she went circling with the others around Nellie. Nellie tossed her curls and flounced her skirts, because she had her way. Harumph. Then Christy began singing, and all the others joined in. Uncle John is sick a bed, what shall we send him? That's like insubordination, insurrection. She's rebelling against the Nellie. No, Ring Around a Rosie, Nellie screamed, or I won't play. She broke through the ring, and no one went after her. All right, you get in the middle, Maud, Christy said. They began, this is awesome. Uncle John is sick a bed, what shall we send him? A piece of pie, a piece of cake, apple and dumpling. It's something like that. What shall we send it in? A golden saucer? Who shall we send it by? The governor's daughter. I don't know these other verses. What? If the governor's daughter ain't at home, who shall we send it by? Then all the girls shouted, by Laura Ingalls. Yes, it's to the tune of Yankee Doodle Dandy, but I don't, these other endless verses, I have no idea what's happening. Yeah, in the show, Nellie doesn't run away, and Laura, I insist and I stay, and I push her and continue to pull hair and push until she decks me one. which I think is a much more satisfying episode. Laura stepped into the middle of the ring and they danced around her. They went on playing Uncle John till teacher rang the bell. Nellie was in the schoolhouse crying, and she said she was so mad she was never going to speak to Laura or Christy again. But the next week, she asked all the girls to a party at her house on Saturday afternoon. She asked Christy and Laura especially, which I wouldn't trust her across the street, but there you go. Town party! Yay, yay, party. No, I'm not putting the 47 pins in that it takes to hold this puppy on. And this one does not have the giant metal comb that the one did on the show, which was brilliant because that's how you get a wig to stay put. But hurts. So this one doesn't hurt, so it's okay. Laura and Mary had never been to a party and did not quite know what it would be like. Ma said it was a pleasant time that friends had together. It's a party. After school on Friday, she washed their dresses and sunbonnets. Saturday morning, she ironed them, fresh and crisp. Laura and Mary bathed that morning, too, instead of that night. I am so glad they didn't come all stinky to my party. I would have been very, very upset. Wait, my friend ring with it. That one's good. Here, there's a good girl. Just getting these puppies twisted back up again. It's very hard with there. That's better. You look sweet and pretty as posies, Ma said when they came down the ladder, dressed for the party. She tied on their hair ribbons and warned them not to lose them. Now be good, girl, she said, and mind your manners. Because Nellie's not going to. When they came to town, they stopped for Cassie and Christy. Cassie and Christy had never been to a party either. They all went timidly into Mr. Olsen's store, and Mr. Olsen told them, go right on in. Now remember, this is when Christy Kennedy and Cassie Kennedy had huge parts in the book. And in the show, we started initially, Christy Kennedy and Cassie and all these friends of Laura were major characters in the first couple episodes. But it didn't last. Because as the show went on, it's like, focus. We get focus. And they went, oh yeah. Doc Baker, Reverend Alden, Miss Beadle, Laura, Nellie, Mary, Johnny Johnson, like, they just kind of like zoomed in, and then they went, it's the Ingalls and the Olsens, it's the Ingalls and the Olsens, and then like everybody else. And it focused, and then because Nellie and Laura, we went all out with just really hating each other and smacking each other around, they kind of went, do we need all these other people? We do not need all these other people. And that's how TV is, because in the book, Laura is recounting all of her friends, Cassie and Christy, who are like in Town on the Prairie, and historically there's all this stuff about her friends and who they were. And, oh gosh, there was another couple people's names I don't remember, but everybody else does. And in the show though, a lot of people went whoosh, and then we made up people. Then we had like Albert. It's like who? But we made him up. So yeah, these people kind of made it through Town Party, Country Party. They got a couple episodes in. It was good. They went past the candy and pickles and plows to the back door of the store. It opened, and there stood Nellie, all dressed up, and Mrs. Olsen asking them in. All dressed up. I had the purple dress on. I had the purple dress. It was taffeta with little purple velvet ribbons. It was awesome. So there I was, all dressed up. Laura had never seen such a fine room. She could hardly say, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Olsen," and "Yes, ma'am," and "No, ma'am." The whole floor was covered with some kind of heavy cloth that felt rough under Laura's bare feet. It was brown and green with red and yellow scrolls all over it. She'd never seen a freaking carpet. Laura's never seen carpet. We have carpet. We have carpet at my house. Bottom carpets, not made. Their walls and ceiling were narrow, smooth boards fitted together with a crease between them. Fancy wood paneling. The table and chairs were of a yellow wood that shone like glass, and their legs were perfectly round. There were colored pictures on the walls. Paintings with art. We have 6 genuine oil paintings, if I recall. Yes. "Go into the bedroom, girls, and leave your bonnets," Mrs. Olsen said, in a company voice. The bedstead was shiny wood, too. There were 2 other pieces of furniture. This is like itching my nose. One was made of drawers on top of each other, with 2 little drawers sitting on its top, and 2 curved pieces of wood went up and held a big looking glass between them. She had a dresser. It's called a dresser, Laura. And I have a dresser that has 2 little drawers. I don't have the big curvy wood mirror, though. But I have like big drawers and then two little drawers at the top and a mirror. So this is the dresser. On top of the other stood a china pitcher in a big china bowl and a small china dish with a piece of soap on it. Oh, we're so rich, we have a soap dish. But yes, that's what it was. The little bathing station with the pitcher and the thing. There were glass windows in both rooms, and the curtains of those windows were white lace. We have real lace curtains on all the windows, and our furniture is bought. This is all sounding terribly familiar. Oh, wow. Okay. Behind the front room was a big lean-to with a cook stove in it, like Ma's new one, and all kinds of tin pots and pans hanging on the walls. All the girls were there now, and Mrs. Olsen's skirts went rustling among them. Laura wanted to be still and look at things, but Mrs. Olsen said, "Now, Nellie, bring out your playthings." "They can play with Willie's playthings," Nellie said. "They can't ride on my velocipede," Willie shouted. That's how he said it. "They can't ride on my velocipede," which was an 1800s bicycle, and very cool, and an expensive fancy thing to have then, to have a velocipede. It was like a bicycle, but for him to have owned one at that time was like, I have my own motorcycle. I have a Harley Davidson. It was kind of like a big deal. "Well, they can play with your Noah's Ark and your soldiers," said Nellie, and Mrs. Olsen bade Willie be quiet. Now, when we shot this, we had a little Noah's Ark with little tiny wooden animals, and so we did. I think we didn't say playthings. I said they can play with Willie's toys, and he did. He had to let them play with his Noah's Ark, and it was a very lovely Noah's Ark set. The Noah's Ark was the most wonderful thing that Laura had ever seen. They all knelt down and squealed and shouted and laughed over it. There were zebras and elephants and tigers and horses, all kinds of animals, just as if the picture had come out of the paper-covered Bible at home. And there were two whole armies of tin soldiers with uniforms painted bright blue and bright red. There was a jumping jack. Yes, we had a jumping jack. He was cut out of thin, flat wood. Striped paper trousers and jacket were pasted on him, and his face was painted white with red cheeks and circles around his eyes, and his tall cap was pointed. He hung between two thin red strips of wood, and when you squeezed them, he danced. His hands held on to twisted strings. He would turn a somersault over the strings. He would stand on his head with his toe on his nose. Yeah, that's a little tiny wooden paper thing. You squeeze the sticks, and he goes, it's very cool. It's very cool. What do you mean video still? Oh, I'm live. Okay, it's being weird. The internet's being weird, but mine's still rolling. I'm rolling, and it'll still, if your internet's being weird and this goes in and out, it'll still be up on the page so you can watch it again. But so far, my thingy says that I'm still recording and still live, so yay. Even the big girls were chattering and squealing over those animals and those soldiers, and they laughed at the jumping jack till they cried. I know, that doesn't sound terribly entertaining, but there was no television then. There were no video games. There were no, so this was really exciting. There you go. Then Nellie walked among them, saying, "You can look at my doll." Now notice, she doesn't just walk in. Nellie walked among them. Yeah. And she said, "You can look at my doll." Yeah! It's the doll. No, it's not the doll. Well, it's a doll. I showed you this doll a few days ago, the Ashton Drake fancy Nelly doll. You can look at my doll. So then she busts out the doll here. Ooh, okay. You can look at my doll. There it is. The doll had a china head with smooth red cheeks and a red mouth. Kind of. Her eyes were black and her china hair was black and waved. Oh, that was the basic doll. I actually had one of those. I did have one of those where it had the black china hair. Someone did give me one. Black china hair and everything. Her wee hands were china and her feet were tiny china feet in little black china shoes. That was very pretty. "Oh," Laura said. "Oh, what a beautiful doll. Oh, Nellie, what is her name?" "She's nothing but an old doll," Nellie said. "I don't care about this old doll. You wait till you see my wax doll." She threw the china doll in a drawer, and she took out a long box. She put the box on the bed and took off its lid. All the girls leaned around her to look. Now, this is where we got the good doll. This wax doll, wax poupée de cire. The wax doll, as opposed to the china one, is the one that looks lifelike, like the china dolls that we know today. There lay a doll that seemed to be alive. real golden hair lay in soft curls on her little pillow. Her lips were parted, showing 2 shiny white teeth. Her eyes were closed. The doll was sleeping there in the box. Well, this doesn't have an open-close eyes, but fancy. It's like a Betsy Wetsy with the eyes closed and everything. Nellie lifted her up, and her eyes opened wide. Clack, and little doll eyes. They were big blue eyes. She seemed to laugh. Her arms stretched out, and she said, "Mama!" "She does that when I squeeze her stomach," Nellie said. "Look!" She punched the doll's stomach hard with her fist, and the poor doll cried out, "Mama!" I punched a doll. It's so cruel. She was dressed in blue silk. Blue silk. Her petticoats were real petticoats. She didn't have petticoats. Trimmed with ruffles and lace, and her panties were real little panties that would come off. On her feet were real little blue leather slippers. Here, this one, she has pantaloons. She has real pantaloons, and she has little leather shoes with little buttons. And then she comes with like a little china doll of her own, which has the blue, but it's not as nice as this doll. Not as nice as this doll. All this time, Laura had not said a word. She couldn't. She could not think of actually touching this marvelous doll, but without meaning to, her finger reached out toward the blue silk. No, it's Ark. It's Noah's Ark. It's just Noah's Ark. And there I am being horrible. "Don't you touch her!" Nellie screeched. "You keep your hands off my doll, Laura Ingalls." She snatched the doll against her and turned her back so Laura could not see her, putting her back in the box. Laura's face burned hot, and the other girls did not know what to do. Laura went and sat on a chair. The others watched Nellie put the box in a drawer and shut it. Then they looked at the animals and the soldiers again and squeezed the jumping jack. Now, Nellie's so spoiled. She didn't even play with the thing. She punches it in the stomach. But she also just shoves it in a box and slams it into a drawer. She didn't even like the doll. It's like, look, I have this, and I don't care, and I keep her in a drawer. That's pretty cool. And on the show, Laura touches the dress, and I snatch it back so hard that the skirt tears. And it's the end of the world because she tore it like the skirt. And even when Mrs. Olsen's like, I can fix it. So it was even worse. We made it worse on the show. That's pretty mean. Mrs. Olsen came in and asked Laura why she was not playing. Laura said, "I would rather sit here, thank you, ma'am." "Would you like to look at these?" Mrs. Olsen asked her, and she laid 2 books in Laura's lap. "Thank you, ma'am," Laura said. Mrs. Olsen's almost nice. Mrs. Olsen is almost nice to Laura here. She turned the pages of the books carefully. One was not exactly a book. It was thin and had no covers. It was a little magazine, all for children. It's like highlights. The other was a book with a thick, glossy cover, and on the cover was a picture of an old woman wearing a peak cap and riding on a broom across a huge yellow moon. On her head, over her head, large letters said, "Mother Goose!" Yay! Laura had not known there were such wonderful books in the world. On every page of that book, there was a picture and a rhyme. Laura could read some of them. She forgot all about the party. Okay, how many of us are totally that person? You go to a party, you don't know everyone there, you're kind of intimidated, the hostess is maybe kind of snotty and like Nelly Olsen, and you just sit in the corner and read a book. And if you could just sit and read a book at the party and not talk to people, you would be thrilled. How many people have totally felt that way? So Laura's reading a book at a party. Suddenly, Mrs. Olsen was saying, "Come, little girl, you mustn't let the others eat all the cake, must you?" "Yes, ma'am," Laura said. No, ma'am." A glossy white cloth covered the table. On it was a beautiful sugar-white cake and tall glasses. Now remember, we've been going on and on these chapters about brown sugar and white sugar and molasses and sugar. White sugar was a big deal. White sugar was expensive and fancy and for company. So a cake that was made completely, Laura got like a cookie made of white sugar and freaked out for Christmas. But an entire cake that's snowy white from all white flour and white sugar. No whole wheat flour, no nothing, pure white and white icing. That's a big deal. Big deal. "I get the biggest piece," Nellie shouted, grabbing a big piece of that cake. Well, it was my party. Was it my birthday? I don't know if it was my birthday. It doesn't say it. It does not say it's my birthday in the book. I think it's my birthday in the show. But I get the biggest piece of cake because it's my house, it's my cake. The others sat waiting till Mrs. Olsen gave them their pieces. She put each piece on a china plate. Is your lemonade sweet enough? Mrs. Olsen asked. So Laura knew that it was lemonade in the glasses. She had never tasted anything like it. Now, I'm sure her ma must have made lemonade, but probably didn't have sugar. It was like probably lemon water, you know. At first it was sweet, but after she ate a bit of the sugar white off her piece of cake, the lemonade was sour. But they all answered Mrs. Olsen politely, yes, thank you, ma'am, because they were all terrified of her. They were careful not to let a crumb of cake fall on the tablecloth. They did not spill one drop of lemonade. Then it was time to go home, and Laura remembered to say, as Ma told them to, thank you, Mrs. Olsen. I had a very good time at the party. So did all the others. When they were out of the store, Christy said to Laura, I wish you'd slap that mean Nellie Olsen. Oh, no, I couldn't, Laura said. But I'm going to get even with her. Shh, don't let Mary know I said that. Jack was waiting lonesome at the ford. It was Saturday, and Laura had not played with him. It would be a whole week before they would have another day of playing along Plum Creek. They told Ma all about the party, and she said, we must not accept hospitality without making some return. I've been thinking about it, girls, and you must ask Nellie Olsen and the others to a party here. I think a week from Saturday. Her mom makes her invite Nellie Olsen to a party. Oh, that's awful. Awful. Country party. And we're sticking with this one. Now the show, this is one of the episodes, like I said, the show did follow the book sometimes. And we actually did do an episode called Town Party, Country Party. And we did all, we had the wooden Noah's Ark, we had the doll, we had the thing. Now, of course, we added the character of Olga, the darling little Swedish girl who had one leg shorter than the other, and her pa didn't want her running and playing with the other girls. And Laura was her friend. And then Pa Ingalls makes her a pair of shoes. It's one sole is higher so she can go running, playing with the other little girls. And that's when I say, let's all take off our shoes and go wading in the creek. Because I'm horrible. And so that's why Laura's so mean. See, in the book, I'm just generally awful and was mean to her at the party and embarrassed her and humiliated her, and but now she wants revenge already. Now, in the show, we gave Laura much more motivation. I was much more awful to the point when she went, okay, that's the limit. Okay. Will you come to my party? Laura asked Christy and Maud and Nellie Olsen. Mary asked the big girls. They all said they would come. That Saturday morning, the new house was especially pretty. Jack could not come in on the scrub floors. The windows were shining, and the pink-edged curtains were freshly crisp and white. Laura and Mary made new starry papers for the shelves, and Ma made vanity cakes. Vanity cakes! It is possible to make these. It's kind of like making donuts. It's a little difficult, though. It involves hot fat or a donut fryer. I'm not sure I want to do that, but there you go. She made them with beaten eggs and white flour, and she dropped them into a kettle of sizzling fat. Each one came up bobbing and floated till it turned itself over, lifting its honey-brown, puffy bottom. Then it swelled underneath till it was round, and Ma lifted it out with a fork. It's donut holes. It's very, very puffy donut holes, basically, round thing. They're very puffy. And, yum. And if I had, like, a donut fryer, or I wanted to actually heat up an entire vat of Wesson oil, I would make those. But, nah. I'll go buy some donut holes and pretend. She put every one of those cakes in the cupboard. They were for the party. Laura and Mary and Ma and Carrie were dressed up and waiting when the guests came walking up from town. Laura had even brushed Jack, though he was always clean and handsome in his white and brown spotted short fur. He ran down with Laura to the ford. The girls came laughing and splashing through the sunny water, all except Nellie. She had to take off her shoes and stockings, and she complained that the gravel hurt her feet. Ow. She said, I don't go barefooted. I have shoes and stockings. She was wearing a new dress and a big new hair ribbon bows. "Is that Jack?" Christy asked, and they all patted him and said what a good dog he was. But when he politely wagged to Nellie, she said, "Go away! Don't you touch my dress!" Which is generally how I actually react to most dogs. I like dogs, but if they jump up on me mid-class, I'm like, ooh, Nelly Olsen, get off my dress. But dogs are cute. They're smaller. Smaller guys. They're fun. These big dogs jumping all over me. I'm like, ugh. But the little dogs are cute. "Jack wouldn't touch your dress," Laura said. "Get off my dress." They went up the path between the blowing grasses and wildflowers to the house where Ma was waiting. Mary told her the girls' names one by one, and she smiled her lovely smile and spoke to them. But Nellie smoothed down her new pretty dress and said to Ma, "Of course, I didn't wear my best dress to just a country party." I just insulted Caroline Ingalls to her face. Bad. Oh, somebody noticed. Nellie suddenly sounded like she was from the South Shore of Long Island. There is a moment in the school scene where I said, "Country girls don't even know what a blackboard is." And I totally have the, Bugs Bunny Brooklyn thing. I'm from Queens. What can I tell you? Raised in LA, but I was born in Queens. And so every now and then, when I was a baby, I was like, toy, and toy. I talked like Bugs Bunny until I was 4. So mean. Then Laura didn't care what Ma had taught her. She didn't care if Pa punished her. She was going to get even with Nellie for that. Nellie couldn't speak that way to Ma. There you go. See, in the show we had the poor little girl with the shoes in it. That's why Laura felt bad and was defending her. That's why she gets revenge on me. But here it was because I insulted her mother to her face, which was pretty bad. Ma only smiled and said, "It's a very pretty dress, Nellie. We're glad you could come." But Laura was not going to forgive Nellie. The girls liked the pretty house. It was so clean and airy, with sweet-smelling breezes blowing through it and the grassy prairies all around. They climbed the ladder and looked at Laura's and Mary's very own attic, but none of them had anything like that. But Nellie asked, "Where are your dolls?" This is the only time I was ever up in that loft. Everyone's like, "Did you like the..." I got to go to the loft once. This is the one time I got to go to the loft. Laura was not going to show her darling rag, Charlotte, to Nellie Olsen. She said, I don't play with dolls. I play in the creek." Then they went outdoors with Jack. Laura showed them the little chicks by the haystacks, and they looked at the green garden rows and the thick-growing wheat field. They ran down the knoll to the low bank of Plum Creek. There was the willow and the footbridge and the water coming out of the plum thicket shade, running wide and shallow over sparkling pebbles and gurgling under the bridge in a knee-deep pool. Now, in real life, when we filmed the show, that pond was seriously far away. Because the house out in Simi, they had a little trickly brook thing, but that pond we went to, that was actually out near almost Santa Clarita. It was like Newhall, where Magic Mountain is, the amusement park, Six Flags Magic Mountain in California. You go out of LA and you pass Six Flags Magic Mountain, you go way out that way, Newhall, and there was a place, I don't think it's still there, but there was a place behind Magic Mountain with this pond with the rushes, and there was a little forest with a little pond, and we shot it there. I think it's condos now. I don't think that's still there behind Magic Mountain. If somebody lives out there and can go out behind Magic Mountain and tell me if that pond is still there, that would be awesome. But I think it's gone. Mary and the big girls came down slowly, bringing Carrie to play with. But Laura and Christy and Maud and Nellie held their skirts up above their knees and went wading into the cool flowing water. Away through the shallows, the minnows went swimming in crowds, away from the shouts and splashing. The big girls took Carrie wading where the water sparkled thin in the sunshine and gathered pretty pebbles along the creek's edge. The little girls played tag across the footbridge. They ran on the warm grass and played in the water again. And while they were playing, Laura suddenly thought of what she could do to Nellie. So, oh my, she led the girls wading near the old crab's home. The noise and splashing had driven him under his rock. She saw his angry claws and browny green head peeping out, and she crowded Nellie near him. Then she kicked a big splash of water onto his rock and screamed, "Oh, Nellie, Nellie, look out!" Now, in the show, it's even more devious. She actually says, Nellie, come here. Oh, you have to see this. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, what? And yeah, she has me come right into the thing where the crab is. The old crab rushed at Nellie's toes, snapping his claws to nip them. "Run, run!" Laura screamed, pushing Christy and Maud back toward the bridge, and then she ran after Nellie. Nellie ran screaming straight into the muddy water under the plum thicket. Laura stopped on the gravel and looked back at the crab's rock. "Wait, Nellie," she said. "You stay there." Okay, this is really mean. Laura is like shoving Nellie into the leech's bloodsucker part of the pond. So we didn't have bloodsuckers on the show. In this, she just makes me run away and fall down. In the show, I run away and fall down. This, leeches. "What is it? Oh, what is it? Is he coming?" Nellie asked. She had dropped her dress and her skirt and petticoats were in the muddy water. "It's an old crab," Laura told her. "He cuts big sticks in two with his claws. He could cut our toes right off." That's pretty mean. I'm going to burp now. Hold on. I'm drinking too much Coca-Cola. I'm going to burp. I'll drink some more Coca-Cola. Excuse me. "Oh, no. Where is he? Is he coming?" Nellie asked. "You stay there and I'll look," said Laura. And she went wading slowly and stopping and looking. The old crab was under its rock again, but Laura did not say so. She waded very slowly all the way to the bridge while Nellie watched from the plum thicket. Then she waded back and said, "You can come out now." Yeah, she waited longer so that the leeches would have time to attach themselves. It's very cruel. Oh, my heavens. Laura's kind of mean here. Nellie came out into the clean water. She said she didn't like that horrid old creek and wasn't going to play anymore. That's my answer to everything. She tried to wash her muddy skirt, and then she tried to wash her feet, and then she screamed. "Ah!" Muddy brown bloodsuckers were sticking to her legs and her feet. She couldn't wash them off. She tried to pick one off, and then she ran screaming up on the creek bank. There she stood, kicking as hard as she could, first one foot and then the other, screaming all the time. That's very cruel. Laura laughed till she fell on the grass and rolled. "Oh, look, look," she shouted, laughing. "See Nellie dance." All the girls came running. Mary told Laura to pick those bloodsuckers off Nellie, but Laura didn't listen. She kept on rolling and laughing. "Laura," Mary said, "you get up and pull those things off or I'll tell Ma." Then Laura began to pull the bloodsuckers off of Nellie. All the girls watched and screamed while she pulled them out, long and longer and longer. Nellie cried, "I don't like your party." She said, "I want to go home." Now, in the show, we didn't do leeches. What we did was I went running and went splat in the water and was covered in goo, and I had green moss, like algae, on my head and all sorts and snails. And when I stood up, there's a fabulous outtake somewhere, but when I stood up and you saw all the mud and junk crap hanging off the skirts, when we shot it, there was actually a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer can hanging off of my petticoat. That is how dirty the water was, and snails and things. So, and I believe what I said on the show, as opposed to with help, it was, see if I can do it. "Mother!" There, yeah, you totally were waiting for that, weren't you? There you go. See, I can do it. Ma came hurrying down to the creek to see why they were screaming. She told Nellie not to cry. A few leeches were nothing to cry about. She said it was time now for them all to come to the house. The table was set prettily with Ma's best white cloth and the blue pitcher full of flowers. The benches were drawn up on either side of it, shiny tin cups, full of cold, creamy milk, yea, fresh from the cow, from the cellar, and the big platter was heaped with honey-colored vanity cakes. The cakes were not sweet, but they were rich and crisp and hollow inside. Each one was like a great bubble. The crisp bits of it melted on the tongue, like donuts. They ate and ate of those vanity cakes. They said they had never tasted anything so good, and they asked Ma what they were. "Vanity cakes," said Ma, "because they are all puffed up like vanity, with nothing solid inside." Here, you get a moral lesson with your baked goods. Here's a donut, but let me tell you what this donut means. This donut means you need to have more going on than just your vanity. Do not be all puffed up with nothing inside. A vanity cake. So here's your donut, here's your moral lesson. There were so many vanity cakes that they ate till they could eat no more, and they drank all the sweet cold milk they could hold. Then the party was over. All the girls, but Nellie, said thank you for the party. Nellie was still mad. Laura did not care. Christy squeezed her and said in her ear, "I never had such a good time, and it just served Nellie right." Deep down inside her, Laura felt satisfied when she thought of Nellie dancing on the creek bank. look like mean. Now, to be fair, as awful as Nellie was, when we shot Town Party Country Party, I did thank the Ingalls. I did. I remember being all wet and soggy, and as they line up to swim back, I said, "Thank you, Mrs. Ingalls," and I curtsied and stomped off in a huff. I did. I curtsied. That's very good. But yes, I got snails and stuff in my hair. It was gross. But luckily Nelly and we had a little crawfish, a little stunt animal actor crawfish. It's like a guy brings the thing. It wasn't just any old like lobster crawfish. A animal trainer comes with a cage and thing and takes his like special crawfish, puts it in the water, and it does its thing, and then he puts it in the thing. Crawfish gets paid. It's what we did. But yes, Town Party Country Party. Nelly was horrid in the books. I like to think we made her more hard on the show. I kind of like, but she was more grand. She was just kind of shrieky and terrible in this episode. But I feel I was more grand and fussy and egotistical and pushy in the show as much. So once I said curtsying is easy. Yeah, curtsying's hard. It's the core muscles that you need to curtsy properly. You don't want to do it all in the knees. It's hard on the knees. You got to use the back muscles and the thighs. Isn't that right? I've gone mad, clearly. But yes, this is awesome. I promised I would wear the wig when I read the Nelly chapter, and I did not lie. See, I did. This is so dumb. Yeah, and it's got confetti in it. I use it. This one, because we're using it a lot in the French version of my show, because when I was going to France, I had this whole comedy review thing. We do Le Mal au Trésor de Nelly Olsen, which is Nelly Olsen's Trunk of Treasures, and it's really crazy. We pull this wig out, and a little girl, we bring her up on stage, and she puts on the wig, and then turns into Nelly Olsen and attacks me. It's totally crazy. So yeah, we have Nelly wigs and things. So we have stuff like that, and then I've used this in my show. And you will see a different one, but another one, an even more messed up Nelly wig, when you tune in on May 9th. On May 9th, stageit.com, spincyclenyc.com. Yes, there will be a surprise gag at the end where, ta-da, I will appear in Nelly glory. It's a thing. It'll be a hoot. So thank you. I'm taking this off. It's not as hideously as uncomfortable as the one on the show, but it's not exactly terrific either. Wow! You've heard of hat hair? Yeah, this is wig hair. This is what happens when you wear a wig. And this is why, thank heavens, there are bonnets. Bonnets! Baby Jane. Okay, someone just said Melissa and Alison should do a remake of Baby Jane. Actually, Bob and I, the theater, Sharon, Connecticut, the theater where I performed, has a thing where they were having videos of people doing scenes from plays and movies, and Bob and I actually did a scene from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and you bet I wore this, and Bob was the Victor Bono character, and it was awesome. So we did that. So yes, we're so thank you. As I said, we did get in more bonnets. I think you bought them all. There's more coming. We'll just keep doing this. But yes, I'm going to be tagging them and bagging them in the next 24 hours, and there you are. Yeah, Bob. Hey, Bob. Yes. Hello. Is the newsletter done? He's doing the newsletter.
I am putting the finishing touches on it now.
Oh, he's writing the Sock Monkey part. He's almost done with the newsletter, and he's writing the Saga of Sock Monkey, which, if you're a regular newsletter reader, you know that at the end of every newsletter, you get the Saga of Secret Agent Sock Monkey.
International Monkey of Mystery.
International Monkey of Mystery. What? What Sock Monkey? No. Really? Well, you'll have to get the newsletter. So, how's it going?
It's going well. So, if anyone wants to get on the list, now's the time. You got maybe an hour.
Oh, right, because he's almost done. So, if you want to get this month's newsletter, you send an email to loosegravelprod@aol.com. That's LOOSEGRAVEL. Loose Gravel. You know, like on the road. Loose Gravel Prod, short for Productions. Loose Gravel Prod. LOOSEGRAVELPROD. I can spell. loosegravelprod@aol.com. And you send an email and you say, I want the newsletter. And you'll get, and Bob will he'll put you on the list, and you could get this very month's newsletter, which is very, very cool. There's messages from several cast members to everyone, and some announcements of stuff that is happening. So many things are postponed, so many things are canceled, but there are things that are still going to happen because the wonders of the internet. Yay! So you get that newsletter, and you'll know everything. You'll know everything, including Sock Monkey. So now be good and wash your hands. Wash your hands. Talk monkey, clean his paws. Wash your little paws, and get some rest. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll do it all again tomorrow.